Hello, how are you doing today? Okay, so let's talk about savings accounts. More specifically, the question, can the CMS access my savings account? So can they access it? Well, yes, they can. They access it by going to your bank. They put a request into the bank for your money, and the bank will determine where the money comes from. Now, how do they know about your bank? Well, they know about your bank because either you've given them the information in the past, or they get the information from your ex-partner, or they just run a credit report. And obviously a credit report will tell them who you bank with. Now, what credit reports generally don't do is tell you who you have a savings account with. But most people have a bank account which is reported to a credit reference agency, and because it's reported to a credit reference agency, they send the paperwork off to the bank, and it's the bank that determines whether it goes out. CMS don't decide it goes out of a particular account, the bank does. And the bank determines the deduction based on the rules the bank has to follow. So this means the bank cannot take you overdrawn. But if you've got a bank account with no money in it and a savings account next to it with £5,000 in it, and they're being asked to provide £1,000, they will take the £1,000 out of the savings account. If it was around the other way around, they'd take the money at the bank account, the current account, not the savings account. But ultimately, it's down to the bank to decide. While we're talking about savings accounts, let's talk about the accounts you should have. Okay, you should have an ISA for tax reasons, because ISAs pay interest free of tax. And because it's not taxable, it's not subject to CMS. So it's not taxable income. So certainly get yourself an ISA. How can you avoid money being taken out of your bank account? Well, if your savings are not with your same bank as your current account, i.e. if you bank with HSBC, but you have a single savings account with the Yorkshire Bank, they're not going to be able to see the savings account in the Yorkshire Bank, so therefore they won't be able to debit it, unless of course they find out the information by some other means. And remember, the CMS can only go to institutions which are registered as deposit takers with the Bank of England. There is one bank, well, it's not actually a bank, it's a fintech that lots of people mention all the time. And I've looked into this one, it's Revolut. Now, Revolut are not listed as the deposit taker with the Bank of England. Their accounts are online. And more importantly, I've tested this myself, Revolut do not send you information, or at least they don't in my case, to a credit reference agency. Now, I don't have an overdraft facility with Revolut. I do have a bank account with them, and doesn't show on my credit report. And presumably, provided I don't have an overdraft, it won't show on my credit report. But of course, that might not be the case. So, is Revolut a good, safe option? I would suggest it probably is, but I just caution you somewhat, okay? We talk about CMS raiding bank accounts, but let's just remember that CMS can only go to a bank account if they can't get it from your wages. And of course, they're only applying for your wages if you haven't paid. I say that, but actually, one thing to bear in mind is sometimes the CMS make a mistake. We see this all the time. You only have to look on the Facebook groups where people are talking about the CMS and they don't owe the money, the CMS made a mistake, and that does happen. Obviously, if CMS say you owe the money or you owe the person, they'll go for that enforcement process. And that enforcement process normally starts with a DEO, okay, a deduction from your earnings, and then it moves on to your bank account. Let's just talk about DEOs very slightly while we're on the subject. So a DEO is where they go to your employer and ask to take so much money out of your bank account when you get paid. I am aware that the CMS, as far as I can tell, have never taken any action against an employer for not providing the details. However, when the employer gets the threatening letter, they will clearly respond to that, and therefore 99.9% of employers will therefore action a deduction. There are some that won't. There are some where they're small companies and they've got access to the finance. And I've seen it before where the head of payroll just happens to be the person whose account's being raided, as it were. Or maybe it's a small company and they ignore the paperwork, who knows, and CMS go away. The trouble is, the CMS, when they take the money out of your bank account, they can only take out up to 40% of your wages. So not bank account, your wages. They can only take out up to 40%. Whereas if they then move on to enforcement from the bank, they can literally take all of it. They're not allowed to take your overdrawn, okay? But if you've got £1,000 in there, okay, I think they're supposed to actually leave you with about £60 or something. There's some sort of legal minimum, but £60, £70, maybe £100. But essentially, if you've got money in there, they can take almost all of it, but they can't make you overdrawn. So that's just something to bear in mind. So if you think you're being clever by refusing a DEO, persuading your employer to do it, the chances are it may bounce back to you when they actually take all the money out of your bank account. One for employers, my understanding is they can be fined up to £500 for every DEO payment they refuse to provide. That's one of those things. Not really the subject of my video. I just thought, as I mentioned it, I'll just cover that now. So let's just summarise. Can they access a savings account? Yes, they can access a savings account. How can you protect yourself from CMS mistakes? Well, open a savings account with an institution that you don't bank with for a start. That will really help you. But ideally, if there's a problem with CMS, and this is going to end up with them taking money out of your account, try and sort it first. Be proactive. Clearly, if they write to you and it's wrong, engage with them. Head the problem off before it becomes a problem. If they've miscalculated, if they've used the wrong tax year, they've not applied the relevant deductions, chase them. I remember one year when I first got involved with CMS, it took them over 6 months to apply my pension. This year, they did it within 7 days. Okay, so because I went straight in with a complaint to say, in the last couple of years, you haven't done this. I expect this to be done. It was done within a week. Okay, so for those of you who don't bank with Revolut, I will probably put a link to Revolut in the description below. Sometimes they do come up with these offers where if you refer a friend, the friend gets a bonus. So there you go, people, you're all my friends now. So let me refer you, as it were. I will put a code in there. Sometimes you get a bonus, sometimes you don't. But that may well help you. So there'll be a code there. And just one thing to say, obviously, if the CMS is stressing yourself out, talk to people, go onto the Facebook groups, okay? Listen to people, follow people's advice where it's sensible. And there's quite a few people out there that are really good with the advice. People like Peter Anderson, and that they're sort of really good with that advice. So all good. Right, okay. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope this has been of use to you. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments below. I will try and answer them. It's not 100% with CMS. Obviously, companies, organisations do make mistakes all the time. And I would say it's good to protect yourself. It's good to protect yourself and have a savings pot. More importantly, it's good to have a savings pot in case something happens to you. If you have an injury, if you break a leg, you'll still pay CMS for the first 12 weeks. They will not reduce it because you cannot work, because you're sick. They will consider it temporary. So it's very, very important that you have a savings account. And it looks like Revolut for most of you is probably the safest option. Okay, thank you very much. Have a great day. See you later. Goodbye. See ya.